The Jeff Gabriel Connection.
Hey, Peter, how are you? We have Peter Shankman here today. Welcome to the show. How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here with the Jeff Gabriel Connection. You know, I've been doing a little research and studying and reading on you, and I feel like I know you. And in my mind, I call you the everything man because you can do so many different things and you can exude so much energy and keep that energy up while you're going through all these tasks. And I really, really admire that. You are an accomplished skydiver. You're an ADHD expert and purveyor of wisdom surrounding ADHD. You're a social media consultant to many startups and major corps. You're a 5-time author, Faster Than Normal. It really, really interests me. You're a podcaster, and the list just goes on and on. You also have you help entrepreneurs, an incubator website, and you also have helped journalists with Haru site as well, another startup of yours. My question is this all fueled by not just your interest, but the ADHD? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
So I look at it along the lines of my ADHD has helped me in every facet of my life once I understood what it was and how to use it. Growing up in the 70s and 80s in New York City public schools, ADHD didn't exist. What existed was sit down, you're disrupting the class disease. And as I get older, I realized that my brain was very different than other people. I spent way too much time talking out of turn. I had the social acuity of a lamp. I was not a very popular kid. I didn't have many friends. I just didn't really know how to be human. And what I realized over time was that everything that I was doing that everyone thought was weird was actually because of my ADHD, and I was learning how to live my life with my ADHD. And at that point, when I realized that it could actually be a benefit, and I stopped caring what people thought, everything changed. So my success, I've started and sold 3 companies. Most recently, Harrow, as you noted, which changed how journalists and sources found each other, and fundamentally changed how journalists found sources around the world. It was acquired by Pure Newswire, and for me, coming up with an idea for a company and launching it the next day. Normal people don't do that, right? The concept of hey, this sounds like a fun idea, let's see what happens, is not something that most people do. Most people, well, let's sit down, let's research it, let's do our homework. I'm just like, no, let's just start,
Right.
with the premise that it'll either succeed or it'll fail, but either way, I'm doing something. And I think that is a hallmark of people with ADHD and with any sort of neurodiverse brain, is that they are constantly looking for that next exciting thing to keep them occupied, to give them that dopamine fuel, that adrenaline, that endorphin rush, that serotonin. It's not a coincidence that the 2 things I do most frequently are skydive and compete in triathlons. I'm doing my 3rd Ironman this coming October in Kona, the World Championships, because
Wow.
Being on a course for 17 hours, swimming, biking, and running, that high will last for 3 weeks, right? A month, and there's nothing like it. Same thing with skydiving. You have 45 seconds of free fall. Your life is never more clear. I have 2 choices. I can open the parachute and live, or I can not open the parachute and die. That's it. There's no other choice. And
Right.
That kind of freedom is very rare.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm listening to you and I'm hearing so many similarities. So I'm even horrified that I have a severe case of ADHD and have never been, documented, or I just have some similarities to you. One of them being, when I started some of my early business ventures, I would just jump in. I got excited and didn't really get into the nitty gritty and the details. That sort of started later in life as I had a couple of failures. I also fly, I ski, but I also fly helicopters, which is a little bit of a similarity of the thrill of the skydiving. I guess on the ADHD side, can you help people if they haven't been diagnosed, to assist them in seeing how they might be able to see this in themselves and how to see it as a benefit? Because I think a lot of people, I'll just give you one more example for me, and then I'm going to jump back to you. I've always had a difficulty focusing. It's been a very, very hard thing. And I have little tricks and little things that I do that get me to focus. And I think it's some borderline of what you're talking about. It's really interesting to talk to you about this. Can you share a little bit about how people might recognize it and be able to assist themselves in dealing with it?
Yeah, one of the first things I can tell you is that this is probably the only time today that I'll actually sit down. right? I have all my meetings are standing meetings or walking meetings. I've been called Aaron Sorkin a lot because I tend to do walk and talks, right? And I prefer those when you're meeting with people and you're outside, you're getting fresh air. You know, in the era of COVID, it's been great not to have to go to offices, right? And so, but I still want to meet people and see them in person, so we meet outside. And you know, on some days I might do 4 or 5 meetings all outdoors. I'll walk, you know, upwards of 15, 20 miles in a day, but it's great because I'm getting exercise, and the exercise is what gives you the dopamine hit that allows you to focus. Anyone with ADHD essentially has a very, very fast brain, and more than likely doesn't know how to drive it, right? And so learning how to drive that faster brain was the game changer for me. People, you know, who claimed it, there are two types of people who claim they have ADHD. There are people who actually have ADHD, and then people who say, "Oh, you know, I can't find my keys. I must have ADHD." No, it's not that you have ADHD. Learn to put them on a hook when you walk in the house, right? You know, the premise behind ADHD is you know, and I'm not a doctor, and I have to say that sometimes, but as far as it's been explained to me, the body's inability to produce enough dopamine, serotonin, and adrenaline as normal people, about 25% less monoamine inhibitors, which are the things that allow you to create those chemicals that help you focus. And so for me, it is simply about putting together certain rules in my life that allow me to either get the same amount of chemicals, such as exercise. I will not start my day without having exercise, whether I'm lifting weights, whether I'm doing, you know, yesterday I woke up at 3 a.m. because I had to do a 60-mile bike ride. And the only time as a single dad that I could do it is before my daughter woke up. So I was on the bike, or maybe Tuesday I was on the bike at 3 a.m. and I biked from 3 to 6, and then took a shower and woke my daughter up, took her to school, and you know, that was my day. And it's people are like, "Oh my God, you're crazy." I'm like, "No, it works for me." That I was so high all day, right? I was high as a kite, and it was wonderful. And my daughter knows it. Like at 8 years old, she knows, "Daddy, did you exercise today?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Yeah, you're not as happy." Right. And so exercise is mandatory. The elimination of choice is mandatory. I have 2 sides to my closet, and they're literally labeled. And the left side says office/travel, and it's t-shirt and jeans. The right side says speaking/TV, and it's a button-down shirt, jacket, and jeans. That's it. My suits, my vests, my sweaters, those are all in my daughter's closet. Because if I had to go every morning, step out of the shower and say, "Oh, what should I wear? Oh, look at that sweater. I remember that sweater. Laura gave me that sweater. I wonder how she's doing." It's 3 hours later. I'm naked in the living room on Facebook, and I haven't left the house. Right. So you eliminate that choice so that you don't have that, you know, same reason I exercise. I wake up, I sleep in my bike shorts. I wake up, I roll 12 inches to my left, and I'm on my Peloton. Right. I've had a Peloton now for almost 5 years, and it's the greatest single purchase I've ever made in my life. You know, I will, if I don't have to think about it, I'll do it. If I have to think of it, so it's why I can't exercise after work or anything like that. You know, I will spend all day coming up with reasons why I shouldn't exercise. And when you have ADHD, you're very, very good at talking people into anything or out of anything. You're also very, very good at doing it to yourself. And so putting those rules into place allow me or prevent me, you know, from convincing myself that, you know, there's a meteor orbiting around Pluto. I shouldn't go to the gym. It might come to Earth. Right. You know, so you ignore those things by just doing it without thinking.
I hear a lot of similarities, and I think people that'll be listening will hear a lot of similarities. I hate picking out my clothes in the morning. I like to pick them out the night before. I like to exercise. I mean, it was very obvious to me early on that I wasn't going to be a lawyer or a doctor, because there's no way that I could, you know, focus my focus on something like that. And so I have to be doing a lot of different things. So, you know, having you here today, besides all of your incredible accomplishments, it's also really just interesting for people and for me to hear your experiences on such a high level and such a high scale, you know, full of accomplishments. I guess one more question before we get off the ADHD, and I have a couple of questions. I want to talk about neuroatypical and neurodiverse economies that you talk about. I want to understand that a little bit more. It sounds like maybe you might be living in sort of like the law of entropy. You're putting out so much energy all the time, Peter. Do you ever crash? I mean, the law of entropy, all this energy is flowing, and then it gets extremely chaotic, and then the energy drops out because there's not enough energy in the system. Does that happen to you?
It does, and again, it's something that you plan for. So I gave my first keynote on stage last Friday in over a year, because, you know, everything was shut down and I was doing remotes. And when I was on stage, the way I set it up is that I have my assistant book my flight, if she can, the flight's usually within 90 minutes of my walking off the stage, because I know that I'm so high from all the dopamine hit that I got from speaking, getting a standing ovation or whatever. It's the greatest feeling in the world. And I know that in about 90 minutes, it's going to fade, right? So the last thing you want is to have a meeting with me 90 minutes after I finish a keynote, because I will just be a zombie. So I plan for that. In a perfect world, I get off the stage, I get in another car, I get to the airport, I get on the plane, and I fall right the hell asleep.
Okay.
It is, again, I time my life in such a way that I know that if I do a 60-mile bike ride, that energy, that dopamine hit is going to stick with me all day, and I'll be fine. But I also know to do that, I go to sleep early. And again, I've stopped caring. I started going to sleep early probably around 2016. And when I say early, my daughter's asleep by 8 o'clock. I'm out by 8:30.
Wow.
But I'm up by 3:30, quarter to 4. And everyone's like, they have two responses. The first response is, "Oh my God, are you a farmer?" But the second response, "Oh God, I wish I could get up that early." Well, you can. No, there's no way I can't. Well, you can. You just have to go to bed a little early. Oh, I don't know. My biggest fear when I started doing this was that I'd miss out on all like the industry events and all that. You know how many times I've lost business or not gotten a deal because I wasn't out late at a club or an event? Like fucking zero, right? Literally
right.
not once. But you know what has happened? When I'm at the door at Equinox at 5:30 in the morning waiting for it to open, you know who's there? The people who can do those deals. Because the people who are the most powerful people, they understand the value of getting up early and the value of getting that exercise and getting that dopamine. And I want to stress, I'm not shitting on people who are night owls. There's nothing wrong with it. I was a night owl for years. But the key is not so much what time you wake up or what time you work, but doing it in a way that allows you to be the most productive that you can be. If your most productive time is 9 p.m. to 4 a.m., great, do that, right? But don't choose time just because it's what everyone expects you to do, right? That's just stupid.
Yeah, it sounds like you're working in a time frame when you can turn over the stones and the most opportunities, and you found a time frame where you're around those people that can engage in those opportunities. I know you're limited for time, and so I want to just move on to some of the other really, really interesting and fascinating things that you think and talk about. One of them is neuroatypical and neurodiverse economies, and you think that's where we're heading. Could you elaborate a little bit and educate me a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, the neurodiverse and neuroatypical is just another way of saying ADHD, ADD, autism spectrum, executive function, dysgraphia, things like that. And there's some studies that say anywhere from 10 to 25% of the workforce and of your customers are going to be neuroatypical within the next 10 to 15 years. So it begs two questions. For a lot of reasons. Number one, a lot more people are getting tested. There are a lot more ways to determine that. Again, it didn't exist when I was a kid. What existed was sit down, you're directing in class. What's happening now is you're seeing kids who are getting diagnosed as early as 5, 6, 7, 10, and they're understanding how their brains work, and they're proud of it. They're no longer hiding that, right? I mean, it used to be any sort of disability or neurological difference was considered a weakness, and now there's no question it's considered a strength. And so you're getting kids who are coming out of college who have been neuroatypical their entire lives, and they're wearing that as a badge of honor. And so if you are hiring for a company and you want the most creative kids, the most creative people, the most creative workforce that you can possibly get, you're going to have to look for these types of people, and you're going to have to understand how to hire them, what they want, what they need. COVID was great for that, and it really gave the sort of the workforce and companies as a whole a real shot in the arm, to the point where it was companies all of a sudden said, okay, well, you know what? Maybe people can work from home a lot, and maybe they'll still be productive. And wow, we gained revenue, and people were more productive, and their output was greater, and maybe we should let them work the way they want. And so a lot of companies have really sort of embraced that a lot quicker than they would have had COVID not hit. So the key here is understanding how your employees work the best they can and allowing them to do that. There is no benefit to a company that requires every single employee to come in at 8 o'clock and stay till 5 if half the employees don't work well that way, right? I learned at a very early age, I don't play well with others. And so I work primarily on my own unless I'm on a stage, and that works. And companies who have brought me in to consult and whatever, they understand I'll come in, I'll see their offices, I'll talk to them, but I'm not sticking around. I'm going to work from wherever I am because I'm better that way.
Yeah, like you were saying, COVID probably helped companies recognize that certain people can work in that isolation, work via video link, and they can get a lot more, energy and creation out of them. And I think, if you can, basically how you're phrasing this ADHD and this neurodiverse personality, you can harness the energy from these people. You can get a tremendous amount of creativity in your business and company. Would you say that's true? I mean, if you could recognize this a little bit more.
No question about it. Companies are learning that, and they're learning how to do that, and they're learning what they can do to hire better and keep the employees as well, keep them happy.
I saw your TED talk. Nice guys finishing first.
Nice companies, yeah.
Yeah, nice companies, and that really hit home for me in business and my outward expression when I try and sell or I do public relations. And I think it was really intriguing, that talk. And, I guess from a marketing's perspective, that's how you consult, or that's how you sort of purvey that information. Can you tell me a little bit about the nice companies finish first, how you came to that, and expand upon that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, the best story I could tell about that is I once worked with Tony Bennett, and the singer, and somehow my father knew him. I don't know how the story went, but one night, my mom, my dad, myself, Tony Bennett, and Tony Bennett's girlfriend all went out to dinner together, and we walked into Nobu without a reservation because he's Tony freaking Bennett, and we sit down and we have this incredible meal, and at some point during the meal, my mom got up to go to the bathroom, and when she did, Tony Bennett stood up for her, and when she came back from the bathroom, he stood up again. My dad and I were, you ever watch The Simpsons when they eat? That's we didn't notice anything. All we were doing was eating. And we leave the restaurant, and Tony and his girlfriend get into their waiting car, and my mom, dad, and I are looking for a cab. And my dad's like, "My God, the food was incredible." I'm like, "Yeah, it was really good." And my mom says, Tony Bennett stood up from me, went to the bathroom, and then didn't talk to either of us for a week. So what did I learn from that basic experience? Since that day, it's all about, I don't need to be awesome. I don't need companies to be awesome. I don't need anyone to be awesome, because the bar is so goddamn low for any kind of good experience. Think about your last flight. Think about your last customer interaction. Chances are it sucked. So I don't need you to be awesome. I don't need to be awesome. My second longest relationship in my life was with a woman who who like a year and a half into it said, I wasn't going to go on a second date with you because I wasn't really attracted to you in the beginning, but you stood up when I went to the bathroom and you asked me about my day. Right? If that's all it takes, dear God, right? How many opportunities are we missing because we're just a little, when all we have to do is just be a little bit better. The concept of being nice basically is just, we live in this environment where everyone's out me. I like to think of it as you. How can I help you? What can I do for you? And that just comes back to benefit you so much. And it's nice to put some positivity in the world. It's my favorite joke is the two guys are in the woods in a trail run, and they're about 5 miles deep in the woods, and they see a bear, and they freak out because the bear notices them and it stands up on its hind legs. And the second, one of the guys, "Oh my God, we're gonna die!" And the second guy leans down and tightens up his running shoes, and the first guy says, "What's wrong with you? You can't outrun a bear." And the guy says, "No, I just have to outrun you." Right? So all I really need companies, people to do is just be slightly better, and they'll win all the things.
Is this one of the most prolific pieces of advice that you give in, vis-a-vis your consulting, would you say?
Oh, without question. Yeah. I mean, I've gone to companies big and small. I've gone to massive airlines. I've gone to hotel chains, car rental companies. And guys, I don't need you to redefine pie. I just need you to hire people who know how to smile.
So, Peter, how are you doing these days? COVID, sort of the middle to the end of COVID, post-COVID, and what do you see in the post-COVID world in Manhattan? Because there's so many questions about Manhattan. Is it done? Is it over? I think it's going to come back fast. I'd love to hear your opinion.
New York always comes back. Everything about New York is cyclical, right? There are, Billy Joel wrote a song about it called "I've Seen the Lights Go Out on Broadway," and that was based on the 1974 through 77 financial crisis in New York City, where the mayor asked Washington for funding, and Washington said no, and the headline in the Daily News was "Ford to New York dropped dead." And so we're definitely gonna come back, but it has been a tough 16 months, especially where I live in Hell's Kitchen. Almost everything's shut down, which made it really, really hard to do anything. You have a place in New York City for what's outside of your apartment, right? That's why you pay so much money for an apartment here. It's for what's outside of it. And so it was difficult, and a lot of homeschooling my daughter or remote schooling my daughter for a year and a half was not an easy task. But as a single dad, I was over the moon thrilled that I could spend so much time with her because all my travel obviously stopped. So it's starting to come back. We are a very resilient city. and a very resilient people. So I have no problem 100% stating that New York City will come back better than ever, but it's going to change a little bit. I don't think we need as much office space. I was meeting this morning with a finance guy, and he said that his company, they were leasing something like 7 floors downtown. They broke the lease, and instead they bought a brownstone, and it has like the first floor is like an entry floor with a kitchen and all that. The second floor is a couple of trading desks, and the third floor a couple of offices, and that's it. It's a place to bring out of town guests or visitors or whatever, clients, to impress them. But I think we're going to see a lot of change. I think we might see the places we assume in New York City to be the business districts, they might actually become more residential, like Midtown, Wall Street, things like that, which would be great because that would definitely drop rent prices and allow more people to move back here. So, with every disaster comes rebirth. So I think we're just about to start hitting the rebirth stage, which is nice.
You think people that left and came back, like everybody needed toilet paper, everybody needed to leave the city and go buy a new house? You think some of those people come back, or it's a new breed of people that come in?
I hope it's a new breed of people because, quite frankly, if you left New York City because shit got a little tough, you don't freaking deserve to come back.
Right. You should have stayed. No, I agree with you.
I had that argument with one of my daughter's friends' parents. They're like, oh, we bought a place in Connecticut and wrote it out. Then fucking stay there, right? If you're gonna wimp out the second shit gets tough, you don't deserve to live in New York City. Don't come back.
Yeah. I was saying to my wife, we had just moved out because we had a boy a few years ago. We lived in Manhattan. We bought a place. We live in Jersey City right now. I said, if we had our place in Manhattan, we would have stayed. We would have looked out the window and watched everybody with their toilet paper just go, and we would have waited it out. Have you had a chance to go skydiving through COVID, or that you're just waiting on that until times change?
No, I'm fully vaccinated now. I mean, I've been fully vaccinated about 3 months, and so I'm at the point now where now that the weather is warmer, I'm most definitely going to go. My last jump was over the pyramids of Giza in October of 2019. So I am very much looking forward to getting back in the sky. And definitely now that it's warmer, I might try to go this weekend or next. It's tough. I mean, the few times per week that I either don't have my daughter, or I don't have anything to do, I'm currently training, like I said, for an Ironman. And so that takes a lot of time. And so, normally I'd go up to the drop zone on a Saturday and spend all day there. Well, now you do a 100-mile ride, or a 15-mile run or whatever, and you don't want to do anything after that. So yeah, it's all about finding that time.
How many jumps do you have under your belt?
Just under 500.
That's a lot. That's expert. That's expert level. So you know what you're doing.
Well, I know what I'm doing. I'm not great at it. I joke that I'm never going to win awards. I kind of fall to the plane. I flail around out my parachute. I land, but I don't need to do better than that. I am the world's most boring skydiver, and I'm completely fine with that. I do it for my own reasons, which is, complete mental reset. Every time I jump, my brain just gets that much better. I don't need to show off or, although I joke that a lot of people who don't skydive are impressed with the fact that I do. I don't need to impress the 0.000000001% of the population who does skydive. I'm happy with everyone being better than me.
Well, I think you're brave to do it. Listen, I fly helicopters, but I don't want to jump out of a plane. I'm afraid to. I'm afraid to skydive, so I'm just going to live through you.
I've jumped out of helicopters too. That's fun.
Yeah, that's great. Go up into a hover and drop you. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, if you ever want to do that one day, let me know. We can arrange it.
Yeah.
I just have one last question for you. What are you working on now? What can we tell people about what you're doing?
So my fourth book was called Zombie Loyalists, and it was about using great service to create rabid fans, right? Again, being that 1% better. The rights, it was originally published by Palgrave Macmillan. The rights have been reverted to me. So I own it now. So I'm in the process of rewriting it for the summer. And this summer I'm going to rewrite it for a post-COVID customer experience world. And I'm going to self-publish it probably late summer, early fall. I'm also working on a follow-up to Faster Than Normal, but as a kid's book. So teaching children that ADHD is a gift and they should embrace their superpowers. What else am I working on? I'm still consulting for a handful of companies. Speaking gigs are starting to come back, which is great. And yeah, I'm doing a lot of traveling this summer. I got to make up for all the time I wasn't. I have about 5 international trips on the docket, all for speeches and a couple for fun. So it should be good. I'm really looking forward to what's ahead.
That's awesome. And I just want to finish and say, look, I think you're amazing. You do so many different things. And I hope that some young people are going to be listening to this when we do broadcast it, because I think that you can be an amazing example. And I hope some young people reach out to you, because young people especially these days, have a hard time finding direction and examples. I know I did when I was a kid. I had to go through many walkabouts, many different types of experience to get the confidence in myself to be able to do the things that I do now. And I think it's a little bit attributable to the ADHD. So if
Definitely.
people want to reach out, to you, or they want to connect with you, they want to know more about you, or just ask questions of you. And I think, because I think you're an incredible example. How can they do that? Your website, any other way, Peter,
Yeah,
a
I
young
mean,
person could reach you?
my entire life is at Peter Shankman on all of the socials. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on TikTok, well, I try not to be on TikTok. I'm on Snapchat. You can find me anywhere as at Peter Shankman. My email is peter@shankman.com. I respond to all my own email. I'm always happy to chat.
Great. Listen, I think you're amazing, and I appreciate you giving me your time today. It was a wonderful opportunity. I hope we get to meet in person, and thank you so much for your time. Thanks, Peter.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
It was great to talk to you, Jeff.